next session on operations research. In this session, we will take up the concept of limitations of game theory. While game theory is a powerful tool for analyzing strategic interactions, it has several limitations. These limitations arise from the assumptions it makes about human behavior, information availability, and the complexity of real-world situations. Below are some of the key limitations of game theory. Assumption of rationality. Limitation. Game theory assumes that all players are perfectly rational and will always make decisions to maximize their payoffs. However, in reality, people often make irrational decisions due to cognitive biases, emotions, or incomplete understanding of the situation. So, this is one major limitation of game theory, that it is assumed that people are going to be rational while playing the game, but they can take decisions based on their emotions or incomplete understanding of the situation or some past experiences or some cognitive biases that they have. All this can lead to irrational decisions made by the players. Impact. This assumption may lead to models that don't accurately reflect how real people behave in strategic situations, particularly in complex or high stress environments. So, this impact is seen that how the people are actually reacting in the situation is not found, and we get some biased results. Limited applicability to large complex games. Limitation. As the number of players or the complexity of the game increases, game theory becomes less practical to apply. Analyzing large games with many players, strategies, and outcomes can become computationally challenging or infeasible. So, this is another limitation of game theory, that when you have many players or strategies or outcomes, then it becomes a little difficult to solve, or it can be infeasible at times. Impact. In many real world scenarios, such as global economic or political systems, the number of participants and the complexity of their interactions make game theoretic analysis difficult to implement effectively. So, this is what happens, that when you are applying them to real world scenarios, you get results which are not going to be correct because the problems are already very complex and a lot of complexity has been involved because of number of players, and then because of many players there will be irrational decisions also. So, because of it, the complexity of the solution is going to be more to understand. Perfect information assumption in many models. Limitation. Many game theory models assume that players have perfect information about the game's structure, payoffs, and strategies available to all players. However, in reality, players often face uncertainty or incomplete information. Impact. Real world decisions are often made under conditions of uncertainty, and the assumption of perfect information can make game theoretic models less applicable to situations where players lack knowledge about each other's payoffs, preferences, or strategies. So, when you are not aware of these factors like payoffs, preferences, or strategies, and you are going and making some decisions, then obviously you are going to make bad decisions because you do not know about the other person's priorities. So, incomplete information over here can lead to bad solutions. Difficulty in modeling human emotions and psychology. Limitation. Game theory primarily focuses on logical decision making processes and payoffs without accounting for human emotions such as fear, trust, jealousy, or empathy, which can heavily influence behavior. So, even if you are playing a simple game like chess, which is a part of game theory, you're still being influenced by these emotions, and it is very difficult to model them and understand what a person must be going through while playing the game. Impact. Emotional factors can lead to decisions that deviate from the rational strategies predicted by game theory. For example, in bargaining or conflict situations, people may act irrationally out of spite or a desire for fairness, which game theory struggles to capture. So, if there are situations like in bargaining or conflict situations, wherein you are trying to strike off a balance and figure out what is fair for you. It could be a simple case of bargaining to get vegetables from the market. So you always feel that you are being charged higher for the vegetables that you buy, and the vendor always feels that the price is always being lowered from his end and it has to be shelled out by him. So, when this bargaining or conflict situation arises and both the parties want to go for a fairness in the game, but there will be other emotions which are involved, like empathy should be involved from both the sides. There should be a trust that no one is cheating the other, or there could be a fear in the minds of both the parties. So, when these influence the decision, what outcome you get from this game model is going to be a biased one. It will not be as per the game which has been theoretically designed. Overemphasis on equilibrium concepts, limitation. Game theory often focuses on equilibrium concepts such as Nash equilibrium, where players' strategies are mutually best responses. However, in many real world situations, players may not reach equilibrium due to complexity, bounded rationality, or changing environments. So, Nash equilibrium is where one player loses and the other gains, which is the strategic way of playing the game. And it is the best possible outcome for a situation. But because of these complexities that we have just gone through, there will be a complete different outcome of the game which may happen. Impact. Real life interactions may not always settle into equilibrium, and focusing too much on equilibrium solutions can lead to unrealistic expectations of stable outcomes in dynamic or evolving situations. Challenges with mixed strategies. Limitation. In some games, players may be advised to adopt mixed strategies, randomizing their choices with certain probabilities. However, real people are often uncomfortable with randomization and find it difficult to implement mixed strategies in practice. For example, when you are playing the game of rock, paper, scissors, which we have already discussed, here it is ideal that you choose amongst three of them, any one randomly. But what happens is the player does not go into a rational thinking and keeps on repeating his moves, thinking that the other player would again repeat his move and he is going to win. Say he wins in the first case, then he goes on with this mentality that he is going to win again and again. So, this is an irrational decision which is made by the player. Impact. This leads to a gap between theoretical recommendations and actual behavior, as players may prefer deterministic strategies that they understand and can justify more easily. Like I told you, deterministic strategy means the player decides that he has played rock, the other player somehow played scissor, so this player B won. So what he does is he continues playing rock, thinking that this player will either choose rock or scissor, because this player will now change the strategy, is what this player will think. So based on the assumption of B that what A is going to think, he may continue playing rock and may win or lose again and again. So this is a deterministic strategy, and this will be easier for B to justify that I assumed A is going to repeat his strategy and I'm going to win, or at least be in an equilibrium state where no win, no loss is going to happen, like choosing rock, rock. So he will continue playing the strategy. So this is what happens. Assumption of static preferences. Limitation. Many game theoretic models assume that players' preferences and payoffs are fixed and do not change over time. However, in reality, players' preferences may evolve due to new information, changing circumstances, or learning over time. Impact. The static assumption can limit the applicability of game theory in dynamic real world situations where preferences and incentives may shift. So this is also what happens, that when you assume that there will be static preferences, but it doesn't happen because of the new information or learning over time, people tend to change their assumptions and their game strategy. Difficulty in predicting long-term outcomes. Limitation in dynamic and repeated games. Predicting long-term behavior and outcomes can be difficult, especially in environments where learning, adaptation, or changes in strategy occur. Impact. Real world systems such as markets or political interactions often involve long-term repeated interactions where the outcomes are influenced by historical behavior, reputation, or trust, which game theory does not always capture well. So, this is another difficulty in predicting the long-term outcomes. When the person has changed his behavior or strategy because of the environment or any, then the outcomes are influenced by some kind of historical behavior, some reputation or trust. So it is difficult to predict the long term behavior of a person, and this is not captured in the game theory. So it becomes very difficult to understand. Lack of ethical considerations, limitation. Game theory focuses solely on maximizing individual payoffs or utility without considering ethical or moral implications. Decisions that are optical in game theoretic terms may not always be fair or morally just. In real world applications such as economics, business, or politics, ethical considerations may override the purely rational strategies suggested by game theory. For instance, strategies that maximize profits may be socially undesirable or harmful. Game theory will focus on giving of maximum individual payoff or utility and will not consider whether it is ethical or its moral implications. So, this is a complete limitation of game theory. Over reliance on simplified models. Limitation. Game theoretic models often simplify reality to make the analysis tractable. These models rely on assumptions like symmetric information, simplified payoffs, and well defined rules. In reality, interactions are often much messier and more complex. Impact. While simplified models can provide insights, they may miss important nuances and the results may not generalize well to real world situations. This limits the practical usefulness of game theory in very complex or less structured environments. As you know, oversimplifying of anything is not good. So, oversimplified game theory models are also not good for real life scenarios. Coordination and communication issues. Limitation. In non cooperative games, game theory often assumes that players make decisions independently without communication. However, in real world settings, players may be able to communicate, coordinate, or negotiate, which can drastically change the outcome. Impact. This assumption ignores the potential for cooperation or negotiation, making some models less applicable to situations where players can communicate or make binding agreements. So, if you are thinking of a non cooperative game, but actually the people in real life scenario can cooperate and decide and form a binding agreement, then these kind of game models or their rules are not going to be applicable or give good results. Difficulty in addressing asymmetric information. Limitation. Many game theoretic models struggle to handle situations where players have asymmetric information. Example, one player knows more about the game than the others. Impact in real life, information asymmetry is common, as in markets where buyers and sellers have different information, and this can lead to outcomes like adverse selection and moral hazard, which game theory may not fully address. So, game theory generally assumes that both the players have symmetric information about the game, which may not be the situation in certain cases. In those situations, the game will not be moral or ethical. The last one is lack of flexibility in predicting real world behavior. Limitation. Game theory assumes that players will always choose optimal strategies, but in reality, humans may use heuristics, rules of thumb, or trial and error approaches rather than carefully calculating the best response. Impact. The rigidity of game theory in predicting behavior makes it less flexible for modeling real world decisions, where factors like experience, gut feelings, or biases come into play. So, this is something which is completely ruled out by game theory because this is a human behavior which obviously will not be taken care of by a theoretical model. So, when these assumptions are made or these kind of predictions are made by the human, this is not a part of game theory, and that's where the game theory models are going to not show good results. These limitations highlight the need to apply game theory cautiously, especially in complex, dynamic, or highly uncertain environment. While it provides valuable insights, it often needs to be supplemented with behavioral economics, psychology, and empirical observations to better reflect real world decision making. So there is difference between the game theory giving a decision and the real world decision making. So there will be certain drawbacks or limitations as we are discussing over here. But if game theory models incorporate behavioral economics or psychology or empirical observations that are made by people, then the decision in the real world will match with the game theory. So, with this, I end the session. I hope you have understood the limitation of game theory. If you have any doubts, please write to me in the comment section. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell icon for latest video updates. See you in the next session. Thank you.